Richard, not Dad, just Richard. Like I was some random guy who had wandered in off the street to fix the plumbing. That is exactly how my own flesh and blood, my daughter Chloe, introduced me to her wealthy new friends at my granddaughter Lily's prestigious awards ceremony. I had personally written a check for $1,000 to cover that kid's education, but apparently, that did not make me good enough to sit with the actual family at Oak Ridge Preparatory Academy. I am Richard Gallagher, 58 years old, and I have spent the last 35 years busting my back in commercial construction. My hands are permanently calloused, my knees ache when it rains, and I have breathed in enough concrete dust to last a lifetime. I did it all so my family could have a better life than I did. But standing in the marble foyer of that elite private school, I felt like a trespasser in my own life. The usher looked at me like I had tracked mud across their pristine floors. She was young, maybe 25, wearing a tailored blazer and holding an iPad with a smile that was all teeth and zero warmth. Behind her, I could see the auditorium. It was a cavernous space filled with crystal chandeliers, velvet draping, and brass fixtures that probably cost more than my annual salary. "I am sorry, sir, but family seating is reserved for parents and primary guardians only," the usher said, her eyes quickly scanning my tweed sports coat and sensible boots. "We have general seating available in the back section." "I am Lily Gallagher's grandfather," I told her, keeping my voice level. I looked past her shoulder into the auditorium. The first 10 rows had elegant little brass plaques that read, "Reserve family seating." I could easily count at least 15 empty chairs scattered throughout those rows. "The reserved section is quite full, sir," she repeated, pasting that artificial smile back on her face. From the back. Before I could tell her exactly what I thought about their seating arrangement and my $1,000 contribution to their endowment, Chloe appeared at my elbow. My daughter, 32 years old, dressed in a charcoal designer suit that probably cost more than I made in a month supervising construction crews. Her hand touched my arm. It was a gentle but firm pressure, exactly the way you handle an embarrassing relative who does not know any better. "Richard, come on. I will show you where to sit," she said quietly. There it was, Richard. Not Dad, not father, just Richard. Like I was her husband's golf buddy, or a distant neighbor she had bumped into at the grocery store. She guided me toward the back of the auditorium. Her expensive heels clicked against the polished floor like a metronome, counting down the last remnants of my dignity. I caught her glancing nervously toward a cluster of people near the front rows. The men were wearing custom-tailored suits that cost more than my truck. The women had diamonds at their throats that sparkled under the chandeliers. They were all holding wine glasses from some pre-ceremony VIP reception that I had mysteriously not been invited to. "Chloe," I said, stopping dead in my tracks right near row Z. "There are empty seats up front. I want to sit where I can see Lily." "It is assigned seating, Richard." Her voice had a sharp edge to it now. It was the exact same tone she used to use when she was 16 and did not want her friends to see me dropping her off at the mall. "Please do not make a scene. Do not make a scene." Those 5 words hit me harder than the time a steel beam swung wide and knocked me off a scaffolding platform 20 years ago. I had worked construction since I was 23 years old. 35 years of crawling through muddy trenches, inspecting structural foundations in the freezing rain, and pulling double shifts just to make sure Chloe never went without. My wife, Helen, passed away 8 years ago. It was a sudden aneurysm. She was 50. One minute she was standing in our kitchen packing a care package for Chloe's first apartment, and the next, she was gone. I raised our daughter alone through her toughest years. I worked myself into the ground to pay off her student loans so she could start her career debt-free. I helped with the down payment on her first house when she married Justin. And 3 years ago, when she came to me crying about Lily's education, begging me to help because the public schools just were not good enough for her brilliant daughter, I did not hesitate. I wrote a check for $1,000. That was 3 years of private school tuition paid in advance. Half of my liquid retirement savings wiped out with one signature. Because that is what fathers do. We sacrifice, we provide, we build a strong foundation so our kids can reach higher than we ever could. I sat down in the back row, surrounded by strangers who looked as uncomfortable as I felt. I watched my beautiful granddaughter Lily walk across that brightly lit stage. She was 12 years old, wearing a pristine white dress, clutching her Advanced Mathematics Achievement Award. From where they had stuck me, she looked like a tiny porcelain doll in a massive dollhouse. I clapped until my palms stung, but my applause was completely swallowed up by the polite, muffled clapping of the wealthy parents in the front rows. The people who apparently mattered more than the man who had paid for Lily to stand on that stage in the first place. I swallowed the lump in my throat and tried to focus on Lily's beaming smile. But the betrayal was a heavy stone in my stomach. I realized then that my daughter did not see me as a father or a hero anymore. To her and her new upper-crust social circle, I was just a walking checkbook in work boots. After the ceremony concluded, there was a lavish reception in the adjacent hall. It was a sea of crystal, imported marble, and floral arrangements that probably cost what I spent on groceries in 6 months. Waiters in crisp white shirts circulated with trays of champagne and miniature hors d'oeuvre. I grabbed a glass of water and went looking for my granddaughter. I found Chloe standing near a massive ice sculpture with her husband, Justin. Justin was 35 years old, running a mid-sized contracting business called Vanguard Builders that specialized in high-end residential remodels. With them was another couple I had never seen before. The man wore a Rolex that caught the light every time he gestured. His wife had a pearl necklace that belonged on a magazine cover. "Chloe," I said, walking up to their little circle. She turned, and I saw a flash of raw panic cross her face. It was not just embarrassment, it was the look of someone desperately calculating how much damage control she would need to do. "Richard," Chloe said, her voice artificially high. "This is Simon and Lauren Vance. Their son is in Lily's robotics club." She paused just long enough to make the air between us thick and awkward. "Simon, Lauren, this is Richard." That was it. Just Richard. Not "this is my father." Not "this is Lily's grandfather." Just Richard. Like I was the guy who serviced their HVAC system or delivered their Amazon packages. "Pleased to meet you," I said, extending my right hand. Simon Vance shook it. It was one of those brief, limp, dismissive handshakes that wealthy men give to the hired help. "Are you on the school board?" Lauren asked, already looking past my shoulder toward someone more important. "No," I started to say. "Richard does consulting work." Chloe jumped in, her voice unnaturally bright. "Transportation and logistics, highly technical stuff. He is mostly retired now." Her hand clamped down on my forearm, steering me away from her conversation like I was a shopping cart rolling into traffic. "Richard, I think Lily is looking for you by the dessert table. Why do you not go find her?" She practically shoved me toward the back of the room before I could finish a single sentence. Before I could tell the Vances that I was Chloe's father, that I had raised her alone after her mother died, and that every single dollar funding her luxurious lifestyle had been earned with my sweat and calluses. When we were safely out of earshot, I stopped and pulled my arm away. "Transportation and logistics? Really, Chloe? I am a structural engineering supervisor. I run commercial construction sites. I make sure buildings do not collapse and kill people. These people do not need to know that," she hissed. The words hung in the air, sharp and toxic. "What is wrong with what I do for a living?" I asked, my voice low. "Nothing is wrong with it," she said quickly, glancing over her shoulder to make sure the Vances were not listening. "It is just a different world here, okay? Justin is trying to secure a massive commercial contract to save his business. He needs to build relationships with potential investors. We need connections. We need people to see us a certain way." "And what way is that?" I asked. She looked at me like I was being deliberately stupid. "Not as the daughter of a blue-collar construction worker." There it was, clean and sharp as a scalpel. The ugly truth she had been dancing around for years. I had been officially demoted from father to liability, from provider to embarrassment. I left her standing there and found Lily by the dessert table, still clutching her certificate. She had Chloe's dark hair but my bright blue eyes. "Grandpa," she beamed, throwing her arms around me. For just a few seconds, the anger melted away. "I saw you up there, sweetheart. I am so incredibly proud of you," I said. A blonde girl in a designer dress was hovering nearby, listening in. Rich kids learn how to politely eavesdrop before they learn to read. "Lily, who is this?" the girl asked, pointing at me like an exhibit at a museum. This is my grandpa Richard, Lily said proudly. Cool. What does your grandpa do? The girl asked. My dad is an investment banker. I looked down at Lily's honest face, then at this 12-year-old interrogator. I supervise commercial construction projects, I said firmly. I make sure hospitals and schools are built safe and strong so they do not fall down. That sounds really important, Lily said, her eyes shining. If buildings were not built right, people could get hurt. Exactly right, kiddo. I smiled. Suddenly, Chloe materialized beside us, acting like she had been monitoring my conversations with a hidden microphone. Lily, sweetie, go say goodbye to your teachers. We need to leave soon. As Lily skipped away, Chloe turned to me with a furious glare. Did you just tell her you work in construction? I told you, I have been telling people you are in logistics. Can you not just go along with it for one night? I did not argue. I just looked at my daughter, realizing I did not recognize the woman she had become. I walked out of that marble hall, got into my 15-year-old Ford truck, and drove home in complete silence. I did not turn on the radio. I just listened to the hum of the engine and thought about the $1,000 I had paid to be hidden in the shadows. I thought about how Helen used to brag to our neighbors about the hospitals I helped build. My Richard builds things that last, she used to say. But to Chloe, I was just a dirty secret. I sat at my kitchen table for hours that night, staring at the empty chairs. The house felt colder than usual. I had given everything to my daughter, and in return, she had erased my identity. It was not just disrespectful. It was a betrayal of everything our family stood for. I decided right then that I was not going to be a silent victim anymore. If they wanted to play games with status and money, they were about to learn that I knew how to read a structural blueprint better than anyone. And I was about to find the cracks in their foundation. The next morning, I drove straight to the downtown branch of First National Bank. I needed to see my financial advisor, Sylvia Rossi. Sylvia was a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 50s who had managed my accounts for over 2 decades. She had helped me set up Helen's life insurance and guided me through the complex process of saving for Chloe's college tuition. Richard, it is good to see you, Sylvia said, gesturing to the leather chair across from her desk. What brings you in so early? I need to make some changes to the education fund I set up for Lily, I said, getting straight to the point. The one that pays Oak Ridge Preparatory automatically. I want to cancel the scheduled payments and move the remaining balance into a new 529 plan that I control directly. No more automatic drafts to the school. Sylvia raised an eyebrow. That is a significant change, Richard. The remaining balance is substantial. If we stop the payments, the school will notify Chloe immediately. That is exactly what I want, I replied. I want the money secure for Lily's college. But I will not pay another dime for her to be surrounded by people who think honest work is a disease. Sylvia nodded slowly, her fingers flying across her keyboard to pull up my files. But as she scrolled through the screen, her brow furrowed. She leaned closer to the monitor, her expression shifting from professional curiosity to deep concern. Richard, she said slowly, when did you authorize the new line of credit for Vanguard Builders? I stared at her, the blood rushing in my ears. What line of credit? I never authorized anything for Justin's company. Sylvia turned the monitor toward me. There it was in black and white. A. Zeros in commercial credit line drawn against the equity of my fully paid-off home, listing me as the primary guarantor. The documents had been signed 6 months ago. That is not all, Sylvia said, her voice dropping to a serious whisper. She clicked to another screen. There are also monthly drafts of $200 paying for a family membership at the Crestview Country Club, again listing you as the primary account holder. The signatures match the power of attorney documents Chloe filed last year when you were in the hospital for that minor knee surgery. I felt sick to my stomach. When I had my knee scoped, Chloe insisted on having a limited medical power of attorney, just in case something went wrong with the anesthesia. I trusted my daughter. I signed the paperwork without having a lawyer review it. She had secretly slipped in a durable financial power of attorney. They have been using my name and my home equity to fund their lifestyle and prop up Justin's failing business, I said, the reality of the betrayal sinking in like a lead weight. Richard, this goes far beyond family drama, Sylvia said sternly. In the state of California, Exploiting a senior citizen's finances using a deceptive power of attorney is considered elder financial abuse under the Welfare and Institutions Code, Section 15.6.10.30. Furthermore, if they altered the documents or forged your initials on the actual loan agreements without your explicit consent, that is forgery under California Penal Code Section 470. That is a felony. I sat back in the chair, my mind racing. They had not just hidden me in the back row to save face. They had actively stolen from me to buy their way into high society. They had risked the home I built with Helen, the home where Chloe grew up, just so Justin could lease a BMW and play golf with wealthy investors. What are my options? I asked, my voice cold and steady. I was not a victim anymore. I was a project manager inspecting a structurally unsound building, ready to tear it down. Because the underlying authorization was obtained through fraudulent means, these contracts are what we call void ab initio. Legally void from the very beginning, Sylvia explained. I can freeze the credit line immediately and file a fraud report with our legal department. The bank will immediately call the loan due in full from the secondary signers. Justin and Chloe, do it, I said without hesitation. Freeze the accounts, stop the tuition payments, revoke the power of attorney, and flag the country club drafts as fraudulent. Are you sure, Richard? The fallout will be immediate and catastrophic for Justin's business, Sylvia warned. I spent 35 years building solid foundations, I said, standing up. It is time they learn what happens when you build a house on lies. I walked out of the bank feeling lighter than I had in months. I had paid thousands to be treated like dirt, but I was about to give them a legal education that would cost them everything. I drove to my current job site, a massive commercial medical center, and spent the rest of the day reviewing blueprints. I checked load-bearing walls and stress points, knowing exactly how much pressure it takes to make a weak structure completely collapse. Justin's company was trying to land a multi-million-dollar contract with Apex Medical, the very same corporation I was currently building this hospital for. I knew the Apex executives. I had drank coffee with them in my site trailer. They valued integrity and financial stability above all else. If Justin thought he could use my money to fake his way to the top, he was severely underestimating the old man in the work boots. The trap took less than 48 hours to spring completely shut. It started on a Tuesday morning while I was standing on the 4th floor of the unfinished hospital, watching my crew pour concrete. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was Chloe. I let it go to voicemail. 5 minutes later, she called again. Then Justin called. I put my phone on silent and went back to work. I wanted them to sweat. By the time I pulled into my driveway at 6 p.m., Justin's leased luxury BMW was already parked on my lawn. Chloe and Justin were standing on my front porch, both looking like they had just seen a ghost. Justin's custom-tailored suit was wrinkled, and his tie was yanked loose. Chloe was practically hyperventilating. "Dad!" Chloe screamed as soon as I stepped out of my truck. "Thank God! We have a massive emergency. The bank froze our accounts." The school called and said Lily's tuition check bounced, and Justin's business credit line has been locked. "I know," I said calmly, walking past them to unlock my front door. "Come inside." They followed me into the kitchen, the same kitchen where I had cooked Chloe dinner every night after her mother died. I did not offer them a seat. I stood by the island, still wearing my steel-toed boots and my reflective vest. "What do you mean, you know?" Justin demanded, his face red with panic. "Richard, the bank is demanding immediate repayment of the 1,000 credit line. They said the guarantor flagged it as fraudulent. You have to call Sylvia right now and tell her it is a misunderstanding. I have payroll on Friday, and if I do not secure the Apex Medical contract tomorrow, my company is dead." "It is not a misunderstanding, Justin," I said, crossing my arms. "It is a felony. It is called forgery under California Penal Code Section 470. The blood completely drained from Chloe's face. She grabbed the edge of the granite counter to steady herself. "Dad, what are you talking about?" "I am talking about the durable financial power of attorney you slipped into my medical paperwork when I had knee surgery," I replied, my voice dangerously quiet. "I am talking about the 1,000 credit line you secured against my house. I am talking about the 200 monthly country club dues. You committed elder financial abuse, Chloe. You stole from the father who gave you everything just so you could impress people like Simon and Lauren Vance. People who think I am just some logistics consultant. Justin stepped forward, trying to use his height to intimidate me. Look, Richard, it was a temporary cash flow issue. The high-end residential market dried up. We just needed capital to pivot to commercial contracts. We were going to pay you back as soon as the Apex deal closed. We did not steal anything. We just leveraged family assets. Family assets? I laughed. A harsh, bitter sound that echoed in the kitchen. At the awards ceremony, you made it very clear that I am not family. I am just Richard, the guy you hide in the back row. So, as a non-family member, I am treating this strictly as a business matter. Because the documents were forged, the contracts are void ab initio. The bank has called the loan. You owe them, 1,000 immediately. Not me. Chloe started sobbing. Real, ugly tears. Dad, please, if the bank pursues this, Justin will go to prison. We will lose the house, the cars, everything. Lily will be ruined. You cannot do this to your own granddaughter. Do not use Lily as a shield for your crimes. I snapped. I already moved the 1,000 into a secure 529 plan in my name. Lily's college is fully funded. But she is not going back to Oak Ridge Preparatory. She does not need to be raised by parents who teach her that status is more important than integrity. You vindictive old man. Justin spat, his panic turning to rage. If you do not call the bank and fix this, Vanguard Builders will go bankrupt by Monday. I am not fixing anything, I said, staring him dead in the eye. And by the way, I had coffee with the Apex medical executives this morning. I am the lead structural supervisor on their new hospital project. When they casually asked if I knew a contractor named Justin from Vanguard Builders, I told them the absolute truth. I told them you were a man who builds his business on fraudulent documents and stolen equity. They pulled your bid from consideration at noon today. Justin stumbled backward like I had physically punched him. He hit the wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the floor, his head in his hands. He knew it was over. You have two choices, I told my daughter, looking down at her tear-streaked face. Choice one, you sell your house, you sell the cars, you liquidate everything you own to pay off the bank, and you start over. Choice two, I let the bank's legal department hand the fraud file over to the district attorney, and you both go to prison for a minimum of 3 years. Chloe looked at Justin, then back at me. She finally realized that the blue-collar worker she had been so ashamed of was the only thing standing between her and a prison cell, and I had just removed my support. Get out of my house, I commanded, and do not ever forge my name again. They left without another word. The heavy silence in my house returned, but this time it did not feel empty. It felt clean. It felt like I had finally cleared away the rot and exposed the solid foundation underneath. The next 6 months were the most turbulent period my family had ever faced, but they were also the most necessary. When a building's foundation is compromised by rot and deceit, you cannot just paint over the cracks. You have to tear it down to the studs and rebuild from the ground up. And that is exactly what happened to Chloe and Justin. Without the Apex medical contract, and with the bank demanding immediate repayment of the 1,000 fraudulent credit line, Vanguard Builders collapsed within a matter of weeks. Justin was forced to declare Chapter 7 bankruptcy for his business. To avoid the felony forgery charges and keep themselves out of a California state penitentiary, they had to liquidate all their personal assets. They sold the sprawling 5-bedroom house with the manicured lawn. The luxury BMW and the country club membership disappeared. They moved into a modest 2-bedroom rental apartment on the other side of town. Justin, stripped of his CEO title and his inflated ego, had to take a job as a mid-level project estimator for a commercial roofing company. It meant regular hours, a modest salary, and no more pretending to be a wealthy tycoon. For the first 3 months, Chloe did not speak to me. I knew she was angry, probably blaming me for ruining her perfect socialite life. But I did not reach out to apologize. I had spent my entire life fixing her problems, softening her falls, and insulating her from the consequences of her own actions. This was one mess she had to clean up herself. If she was ever going to respect me, or respect herself, she needed to feel the weight of reality. I focused on my work. The Apex Medical Hospital project was in its final phases, and there was a deep satisfaction in seeing the steel and concrete come together to form something that would actually help people. real, honest work that left a lasting impact. Then, on a rainy Saturday afternoon in late November, I was in my garage tuning up my old lawnmower when I heard a car pull into the driveway. It was a used Honda Civic. Chloe stepped out holding an umbrella with Lily right behind her. My heart skipped a beat, but I kept my face neutral. I wiped the grease off my hands with a shop rag and walked to the front of the garage. "Dad," Chloe said softly. Her voice lacked the sharp, pretentious edge it used to have. She looked tired, wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of designer clothes, but she also looked more genuine than she had in years. "Chloe." "Lily." I nodded, opening the garage door wider. "Come on in out of the rain." Lily ran past her mother and wrapped her arms around my waist. "Grandpa, I missed you so much." "I missed you too, kiddo," I smiled, hugging her tight. I looked over her head at my daughter. Chloe was standing awkwardly near my workbench, staring at the pegboard where I kept my tools perfectly organized. "Can we talk?" Chloe asked, her voice cracking slightly. "Lily, why do you not go inside?" "I think there is some chocolate ice cream in the freezer," I said. Lily grinned and bolted for the kitchen door. Once we were alone, the silence in the garage was heavy, filled only by the sound of the rain drumming against the tin roof. "I am sorry," Chloe finally said, the tears spilling over. She did not try to wipe them away. "I am so incredibly sorry, Dad, for everything. For the money, the forged signatures, the lies. But most of all, I am sorry for how I treated you at that ceremony. I was so consumed by trying to be someone I was not that I forgot who actually matters." I leaned against the workbench, letting her get it all out. "Justin and I lost everything," she continued, her voice trembling. "But losing the house was not the worst part. The worst part was realizing that the people I tried so hard to impress, the Vances and all those country club friends, did not care about us at all. The minute the money dried up, they stopped returning my calls. They were never my friends. They just liked the illusion we were projecting." "Illusions cannot hold weight, Chloe," I said gently. "Only a solid foundation can do that." "I know that now," she sniffled, looking me in the eye. "Justin is working 50 hours a week at the roofing company. He hates it, but he is actually bringing home an honest paycheck. I got a job as an administrative assistant at a dental office. We are paying our bills. We are surviving, and Lily is thriving." "How is she liking the public middle school?" I asked. Chloe smiled through her tears. "She loves it. She joined the robotics club there, and the kids do not care what kind of car I drive. But she brought something home on Friday that I think you need to see." Chloe reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She handed it to me. It was an essay, written in Lily's neat handwriting. The title at the top read, "My Grandpa Builder." I unfolded the paper and began to read. "Most kids at my school look up to athletes or movie stars, but my hero is my Grandpa Richard. He is 58 years old, and he has worked in construction for 35 years. He does not wear a fancy suit to work. He wears steel-toed boots and a hard hat because he does the most important job in the world. He makes sure that hospitals and schools are built safe and strong so that people do not get hurt. When my grandma died, my grandpa raised my mom all by himself. He worked day and night to pay for everything she needed. He never complained. He just built a good life for us with his own two hands. Asterisk. Some people think that having a lot of money or a big house makes you important. But my grandpa taught me that real importance comes from honesty and hard work. You cannot fake a good foundation. When I grow up, I want to be a structural engineer just like him. I want to build things that matter, and I want to be someone that my family can always rely on." I had to stop reading. The words blurred together as my eyes filled with tears. I had spent 35 years breathing dust and breaking my back, wondering if any of it truly mattered, wondering if I was just a disposable tool in my daughter's life. But reading Lily's essay, I realized that the legacy I had built was not made of concrete and steel. It was made of character, and it had skipped a generation to take root in my granddaughter's heart. "She got an A on it," Chloe whispered, stepping forward and putting her hand on my arm. This time, it was not to hide me or steer me away. It was to hold on to me. She read it out loud to her entire class. She was so proud, Dad, and listening to her read it, I have never been more ashamed of myself. "You are the best man I know, and I treated you like a liability. I do not expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to try to earn my father back." I looked at my daughter. The pretentious socialite was gone. Standing in front of me was the girl I had raised, the girl Helen had loved, finally stripped of her false pride and ready to start over. Forgiveness takes time, Chloe, I said, pulling her into a tight hug. But the foundation is still here. We can rebuild. Over the next few years, things slowly returned to normal, but it was a new, healthier normal. Justin and Chloe learned how to live within their means. Without the crushing pressure of maintaining a fake, wealthy lifestyle, their marriage actually improved. They paid off their debts slowly and honestly. Lily continued to visit me every weekend. I taught her how to read structural blueprints, how to calculate load-bearing limits, and how to use every tool on my pegboard. She had a brilliant analytical mind. True to her word in the essay, she applied to a specialized high school for engineering and got accepted on a full merit scholarship. I did not have to pay a single dime in tuition, though her 529 college fund was waiting patiently for her when she was ready for university. Sometimes, when I am sitting on my back porch drinking a beer after a long shift, I think about that disastrous awards ceremony at Oak Ridge Preparatory. I think about how much it hurt to be introduced as a logistic consultant, to be hidden in the back row like a dirty secret. But I also realized that it was the catalyst we needed. It was the moment the rotten wood was exposed. The $1,000 I initially paid for Lily's tuition was a heavy price, but the lesson it bought us was priceless. It taught my daughter that you cannot forge your way to respect, and you cannot buy integrity with stolen equity. I am Richard Gallagher. I am 58 years old, and I am a construction supervisor. I build things that last. And in the end, I managed to rebuild the most important structure of all, my family.